Okay, hello and welcome to Sonic Alchemy. In this video we're going to have a look at 432 Hz tuned music in Ableton and more precisely in how to work with Precise Temperament Tuning, the 432 Hz tuning developed by Robert Edward Grant. And maybe you're just curious about working with 432 Hz in music and you've heard about the idea. You're just tuning things 32 cents down from 440 to 432. The thing is, however, you're still like an equal temperament. And temperament matters more than you might think. And this is not going to be an in-depth video about precise temperament tuning and why temperament matters. I did a very in-depth walkthrough in my harmonic field architecture series, and I highly recommend you watch this video in case you haven't seen it. It's called 432 Hz Precise Temperament and why it matters for harmonic field architecture, right? And there I go super in depth about precise temperament tuning, about temperament in general, about stable standing wave geometries, and things like that. So this is not going to be that in-depth video. This is going to be more a practical approach video because together with AI, I have created a tuning file for Ableton that allows us to tune Ableton native instruments into 432 Hz precise temperament tuning, as well as third-party plugins and sample players like Kontakt or like synths like Diva or Pigments, things like that. And we're going to look at that, and there's going to be timestamps in the video description if you already know about precise temperament tuning and you just want to jump ahead. Feel free to go to your favorite synth and how to tune it, or bear with me and let's explore a little bit the idea of precise temperament just in small detail, not in full depth, as I said. And yeah, let's have a look at what it's about, this video. So today what we want to explore is what if a tuning system itself can act as a tuning fork for the field, right? And I will show you examples. I will show you how different tunings create different geometries. We're going to look at a 3D oscilloscope in Ableton and see how just two intervals, a C and a G, based on different tunings, create different geometries, and some are stable and have a harmonic phase relationship, and some are unstable. And why we want to maybe use precise temperament tuning instead of equal temperament, because it has more coherence and more stability in the phase, right, and in the geometry. So what if a tuning system can act as a tuning fork for the field? That's the question. What happens when a tuning creates a harmonic relationship, resonant relationship between intervals, right? That's what it's all about. The temperament is the harmonic relationship between the intervals. And tuning can serve as a remembrance. How so? If a tuning is also based on geometry, it has a more coherent way of tuning the field, right? So precise temperament tuning is the tuning system developed by Robert Edward Grant, as I shared in the beginning. And again, watch the full in-depth video for more information on that. But in simple terms, it is an attempt to bring music back into a more precise relationship with geometry, number, and harmonic proportion, right? So in standard equal temperament, which is the standard in Western music, 444 Hz equal temperament, the octave is divided into 12 equal steps, right? This makes it easy to play in every key, but the thing is, we are sacrificing the natural harmonic relationships. They are slightly compromised, right? So this is where, we get a little bit incoherence and phase instability, and this is resulting in, less coherence and energy leakage. So not ideal for healing music or like sound healing or harmonic field architecture, right? So then we have just intonation, which has pure resonant harmonic intervals. However, you needed to retune your instrument for every scale. You have to have a different tuning. So precise temperament tuning is now interesting because it tries to bridge both worlds, right? It keeps the usability of a modern tuning system, meaning we only have one tuning system, can play across all scales, while reintroducing a more geometric relationship between the notes, right? So then we get this pure resonant harmonic intervals. So one of the key ideas of Robert's tuning is the major third, right? In just intonation or Pythagorean tuning, the major third is the 5/4 relationship, which gives us a value of 1.25. And Robert found out that it makes sense to actually lift it to 1.26, which was also encoded in Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, which he goes all in depth about his website on the Precise Temperament section of his website, which I also linked in the other video and talked about it a lot. And that is interesting because the major third of this kind completes the octave with mathematical precision, which the Pythagorean tuning didn't even do, right? The Pythagorean comma was also a mathematical compromise that was not fully, completing the octave with mathematical precision. But this number here, 1.25992.21, multiplied by itself 3 times equals 2. And 2 is the octave, the doubling. So instead of seeing the third as just a musical interval, Precise Temperament treats it like a geometric bridge inside the octave, right? And another beautiful detail is that the tuning is centered around 432.081216 hertz, right? So not just 432. So it's not just the 432 harmonic in a generic sense. It is very close to it, and the audible differences are not really noticeable, but it is slightly adjusted into the interval geometry of the tuning system itself, right? And this is where it becomes interesting for sonic alchemy, because we are not just lowering the pitch from 440 to 432, like you can do, and then it's still equal temperament, right? So it's not fully coherent. You have changed the reference pitch, and you have that 432 harmonic, and that is already way more resonant. However, it's not fully coherent because it's still equal temperament, and the mathematical relationships are not pure, right? So now we're entering a different level of relationship between the notes in the field, right? The coherence is not only in the reference pitch, it is in the relationships, and this is what temperament is all about. It's about the relationships between the notes and the coherence within that mathematics. If they are based on phi ratios, which precise temperament is, then you will have that coherence effect, right? And in my experience, a tuning system can become a tuning fork for the field, especially when the tuning mirrors harmonic principles, geometric ratios, and coherent relationships like Precise Temperament does. It's not only changing the sound, it changes the space that the sound opens. So sound is geometry in motion, and geometry is frozen resonance. And when we tune our instruments in coherent ratios, we're also tuning the listener, the room, the body, and the subtle architecture of the perception, right? So this is something I want to not present as a fixed dogma. I want to invite you to feel it and test it and listen with your whole system. So let's now jump into Ableton, and let's have a look at the different tuning systems and their geometry, right? So what I have here on the master channel is a 3D oscilloscope, SOSI, and this is showing us the geometry of the sounds. And here I have 2 audio recordings, each of the different temperaments, and playing a C and a G, and this has been generated with a tone generator, like super precise to the decimal, right? Those are the values calculated for a C and a G in 432 hertz equal temperament, so not precise. Then we have the standard 440 tuning here, the C and the G, and then we have the precise temperament tuning, right? So let's listen first and look at the geometry of a 432 hertz equal temperament, right? So if I play this and we zoom in a little bit more, you can see this is a pentagram, I mean, and it's spinning, right? So it's not like fully stable. And if we look at the side view here, you can see, how the waves are not fully coherent. They are like slightly shifting in and out of phase, right? So now let's have a look at 440, equal temperament, the Western standard. There you can already see and feel the difference. And now if we look at the side view, you can see again you know, it's very unstable, it's kind of jittery, and it's not like consistent, right? So now let's have a look at and a listen to 432 Hertz Precise Temperament, Robert's tuning. Wow, you see, it's stable, it's not even moving. And this is completely, like if it still like appears to be moving, it's just our brain because the other ones were moving, but it's actually perfectly still. And if we look at the side view, you see the waves are in perfect stability. You see, there's nothing unstable. They just stay there. Stability, coherent, standing waves, no phase shifting at all, no phasing, just pure stability, right? And this is coherence. Like this is a stable standing wave. And you have to imagine that sound is propagating not as a wave, but actually as a sphere, creating geometries in the space. And if the sound is tuned to precise temperament tuning, we have those stable standing geometries, stable standing wave geometries, right? And let's look at another example again. So this is 432 equal temperament an octave higher, C and the G again. And then equal temperament 440, and then again precise temperament 432, right? Stable. So now let's have a look actually at how to use this with instruments, right? So now we could see the difference in the geometry and the difference in the stability and in the coherence. To me, it's obvious that precise temperament is fully coherent, the other ones are not. That's why I prefer to work with it for sound healing and pretty much any music that I create. So now let's have a look at how to actually create that in Ableton. So you need Ableton 12 for that, and Ableton 12 has a tuning system embedded, right? So if you go here to tunings, you find like a lot of different tunings, but this is not what we are looking for. We are looking for a tuning file that I will share with you on the download link that is in the description, and then you can use that tuning file to tune the instruments within Ableton. So in order to get there, like I'm here in my user library, right, in the places, and then you can right click, so you can go show in Finder, and then it shows you your user library, right? You can open that, and then you can create a new folder, and I call it tunings, and you just paste that tuning file, the ASCL file, which is Ableton's own tuning file format. You paste it in there, and that's all you need to do. And then you go back to your browser in Ableton, go to the user library, go to your tunings folder that you have just created, and then, you know, I have a bunch of tunings here, but this one is the one that we want to use, 432 Hertz Precise Temperament by Robert Grant.ASCL. So we just put it in here, and then you can see any instrument within Ableton is already applying that tuning. So we can start simple with an operator, right? So I'm just gonna drop an operator here, and then I'm gonna put a tuner behind it. Just go to tuner here in the audio effects. And you see already the reference pitch has adjusted, right, to 432.081. And now I can just play a note, right? And it's spot on, right? And it's giving us the A value of 432. It's rounding it up. It's actually 0.081, but it's showing the decimals here. But let's have a look at the oscilloscope again, right? Stable completely. Let's go back again, right? Across the octaves. And if I delete the tuning again, then we're back to 440. And then you see we get the phase shifting again, right? So if I put the tuning on again, just double click on it, here it appears. Now we have the stable, and this is me now playing the operator, right? So that also goes for any other instrument. Those were now just sine waves. But you could also use like the wavetable, for example, right? So you go here, instruments, wavetable, same thing, right? And then if you actually want to use like a preset, maybe let's use the chimes here. So that's the wavetable now. See? Now we are still in precise temperament. And that's as easy as that. And that goes for any instrument that is native to Ableton. It will just apply the tuning right away. So that is very easy if you want to work with Ableton tunings, right? And there's a lot of beautiful instruments to choose from. But let's say you want to work with a third-party plugin, right? Let's say you want to work with Kontakt, for example. There's a lot of beautiful stuff in Kontakt. So in order for Kontakt to work, what you need to do is, so if it's not showing up like this, right? So this is the default view, the modern view, right? And I loaded Lunaris into here, which is this is a sample library that I like a lot. And so if you want to like retune it, you have to go to switch classic view, right? And then you have this gear icon here. And by default, this will be at 440, right? So this is how it will show up by default, 440 Hertz, right? And then I can double click on here and type in 432.081 Hertz, right? And then you see it shifting the tuning. We have that tuning applied. And now let's play a note. And let's see. Right? And here we are. Precise temperament tuning in Kontakt. So you just need to change the reference pitch to 432.081 here and have that tuning file applied, and then you're good to go. And you can create beautiful music tuned to 432 precise temperament in Kontakt, right? Easy as that. And then let's have a look at Decent Sampler, which is an amazing free sample player where you find a lot of beautiful instruments. In case you're wondering, you'll find that on the Piano Book website, right? pianobook.co.uk. And then you go to Sample Packs, Decent Sampler. You also need to download Decent Sampler. I did a full video on that. But basically, you get so many beautiful, free sample instruments. Like, this is like a kalimba, for example. You can just create a free account and then download the instruments. And I did a full-on in-depth Decent Sampler video on the channel. You can check that out and see how that all works. But basically, if you are in Decent Sampler, you can load up your instrument. And then what you need to do is you need to go to File, Tuning Settings, and then remap A4, right? Because by default, it's tuned to 440, right? So then we can go remap it to 432.081, boom. And now, if I play a Decent Sampler, right, you see we are spot on. Right, if we go an octave higher, we get the 432. Obviously, this is like a very special kind of kalimba, right? And that's the thing with those metal instruments, they have overtones and everything, so they are not like stable like a sine wave, but you can see we are in the tuning, right? So this is how you tune your Decent Sampler instruments. You just go to the tuning settings, and you have to make sure that you remap it to 432.081 Hertz. And then if you want, you can just, create like shift, click that, Command G to group it. And then you can like create an instrument rack, and you can just rename that Kalimba 432 Precise Temperament. And then you can just save that. And then you don't have to do the retuning. It's already there, right? So that's the thing. Like, you don't have to do it every time. You can just retune it. Same with Kontakt. That's what I do. I just create the groups here and then save it, right? And then you don't have to retune it every time. Then it's already applied. Okay, so now let's have a look at one of my other favorite sample libraries, which is Forest Kingdom. Right? And in Forest Kingdom, here you have this pitch thing, right? So by default, it's set to semitones, but you can go to hertz, and then you can retune it. Here I already typed it in, 432.08 hertz. You can just click on it. You know, by default, it's in 440, but then you just type in 432.081 hertz. Right, so you change the reference pitch here, and I chose a flute here. So now let's have a listen to that flute. Right, and we are again in 432 Precise Temperament. Beautiful, so now we can play all those beautiful instruments in here. And Precise Temperament, right? And always make sure that that tuning is enabled here. That is the first step. And then let's have a look at Diva. Diva is a little different in that sense that it's not working with Scala files, but it's working with what is called tune files, which is its own format, which many synthesizers and software instruments are using. So you have to make sure that microtuning is enabled. And then you have to put in the file that will be in the download folder that I will share in the description. It's a tune file, and then you have to put that in there in your folder, and then you can choose it, and then you can play it. So now we can see, right? It's applied. So, and if you're wondering, like, yeah, how do I put that in there, or where do I put it in? There's a path here. So you can take a screenshot or pause the video now and look, you know, if you're on Windows, that's your path that you need to find it. And on Mac, you look here, that folder, and then you just paste that tune file into there, right? In the tunings folder of Diva in the documents, and then you can find it appearing here, right? And then you choose it, and then you can apply that to Diva, right? So this is how it works for Diva. And then we have Pigments also, and Pigments works in a similar way. So here on the settings, you have a microtuning section. The thing is, you can load a tune file or a Scala file. I'm using the Scala file here, which I will also provide for you. So you just click on load the file, and then you select it where it is, right here. It's in my downloads folder. Open it, click OK. And then you leave everything as it is. You turn that on, you leave that at 440. Because we have now the Ableton tuning, you know, retuning it. So now in Pigments, right, you see, it's applying that as well. And you can play any of the sounds, you know, in Precise Temperament. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for this video. Yeah, I invite you to play around with that, and for me, I'm exclusively using that tuning also for all my upcoming templates. And there's a new one coming out very soon called Ancient Memories, which is a sound healing, sound journey template in 432 Hz Precise Temperament Tuning. And yeah, I will also do more tutorials. I'm recently getting into healing dub techno and healing ambient techno, and just, you know, working with those tunings and creating dance music that is also tuned to those tunings. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for the channel for more videos. And for now, thank you so much for watching. And again, you will find the description the download for the files in the description. All right, see you in the next one.